Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, my name's Jennifer. Now, if you've been following along with me ever since last summer, you'll remember that we water glassed a bunch of eggs together. We basically did that in preparation for the winter when the chickens were going to take a break from laying. But you know what? Let me go grab something and show you. So our chickens are still definitely laying much more slowly than they were over the summer, but we have been getting eggs again. Today we got 2 eggs, and so while that isn't very many, it's a sign that my chickens are finally fully recovered from their molt, and they're going to be starting to lay eggs again regularly for us. So, with that in mind, it's time to start going through some more of these eggs that we water glassed together over the summer. Now, we water glassed these, I think it was back in June. So they've been in this bucket for about 6 to 7 months. So we are going to crack these open, we're going to see how they are, and then, assuming that they're good, we're going to make a delicious recipe together. Now, before we crack into some of these eggs, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a spoiler, which is that we have gone through about another one of the buckets of these eggs already. We used them in a lot of baked goods that we made getting ready for Christmas, and the eggs were good. So I am anticipating that these eggs will be good as well, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys the update and just let you see how the eggs held up. So we water glassed eggs together in these 2-gallon plastic buckets. These are food grade. In case you missed the video where we water glassed these eggs together, I'm going to link that in the video description so that you can check that out. And you can see how to do that in case you're interested in trying this project for yourself in the future. But for now, let's open up this bucket and take a look at our eggs. So, now, these eggs look really good. Obviously, we won't know for sure how they are until we actually crack them open, but at first glance, I would say they look good. Now, I'm going to say that this bucket actually seems to have held up better than the bucket that we already used. There was a little bit of an off smell with our other bucket, not to the point of smelling like a rotten egg or anything like that, but it did definitely smell a little bit eggy. From what I read, that's not abnormal, but this one doesn't seem to have that at all. So I would say that this bucket seems to have held up a little bit better. Maybe this one was the more recent one that we did. I'm not really sure exactly what the reason is for that, but either way, when you are using water glassed eggs, you want to make sure to rinse them really thoroughly because we preserved these in pickling lime. And while that is great at preserving eggs, it basically plugs all the pores in the shell and keeps oxygen out so that the eggs don't go bad. It is great for that. It's not something that you want to be ingesting large quantities of. So we're going to rinse these eggs really thoroughly before we crack them open. So for our recipe, we are going to need 8 eggs, but I'm going to fish these out one at a time. I'm just going to put them in our bowl here for now. We're going to crack these open one at a time into a separate container. Now this one, you can see that one has a little bit of a hairline crack there. I don't think the membrane is affected, but just in case I'm going to toss this egg, it might be completely fine, but I'm just going to play it safe. So we've got 2 eggs set aside. Let me just grab a few more. Now this one's a little bit small, so I may grab another small egg here. We'll add those together and count them as 1. So we'll say that this is 3 eggs so far. There's 4. Oh, and here's another one that's cracked. So, I'm going to say the eggs have held up pretty well. I'm not sure if I maybe inadvertently damaged them when I added them to the bucket or if this damage happened just from them sloshing around. But either way, if you have any experience with a water glassed egg and you find one with a crack, but the membrane underneath the shell is still intact, if you know if that's safe or not, can you let me know that because I'm curious. For today, I'm going to err on the side of caution and discard this one, but for the future, I would like to know. All right, so here's our little bowl of eggs that we're going to be using tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse these off really thoroughly, then we'll crack them open, and that will be the ultimate test. So here's one last look at our little egg bucket. I'm going to go ahead and get this closed up and return this to the basement. So whenever I'm adding eggs to a recipe, even if they're not water glassed, I like to crack them into a separate container and then add them to the recipe. I just think it's a little bit safer in case you get a bad one. But since we're working with water glassed eggs, these are probably about 6 or 7 months old. We don't really know what condition they're in. I'm going to be a little bit extra cautious, and we are definitely going to do that. So I'm going to rinse them. I'm going to crack them one at a time into this mug, and then we'll add them into this bowl here. All right, so let's crack open the first one. So, looks like an egg. Smells normal, so I'm going to say that's good. So let's go ahead and add it to our bowl here. Put that in there. Now we're going to, you can see the yolk is probably a little bit more fragile than normal. Once I cracked it into here, and then dumped it into the bowl. That was enough to break the yolk. So it's a little bit more fragile, but it looks like it's still a good egg. So this is going to be a real test of our eggs today. We've used quite a few of them and they've all been good. As you saw today, we have come across a couple that were cracked. We discarded those and didn't open them up. But all the ones that we've actually cracked open have been good. But so far we've used all those eggs in things like baked goods where they weren't really the star ingredient. We put them in cookies or something like that. Today we're going to be making a Dutch baby, which is a German pancake. And the eggs are the star ingredient of that. So this will be a real good test to see how well the flavor holds up. I'm just curious to see if it's going to taste like a fresh egg or if it'll taste a little bit stale or if we'll even be able to tell the difference. So we will find out tonight. So second egg. Yep, same thing. That one looks good. Again, that one has a little bit of a liquidy yolk again, but there's no sign of any of these eggs having gone bad so far. We've cracked 3 of them so far. Oh, okay, there I just stuck my finger through the shell and got shell in here. So okay, so we've got our 8, actually 9 because 2 of them were really small, eggs cracked into this bowl here. Now we are going to whip these up into a really easy Dutch baby, or as I said, it's also called a German pancake. That way we can sample our eggs and we can give them a real taste and see how they held up. So this is about the easiest thing to throw together. I have my oven preheating behind me to 425 degrees. For the last little bit of preheating, you want to put a really big skillet in there. I think mine's maybe 12 inches. I'm actually not sure exactly how big it is. But you want to put that in for the last few minutes of preheating your oven so that it gets nice and hot too. While that's finishing preheating, we are just going to mix up our pancake right in the blender. Now this is about the easiest thing you can imagine because the blender does almost all the work for us. So into the blender go our eggs. Now you could definitely just make half this recipe at once if you're only going to be feeding a couple people. This is going to be for all 4 of us to split. This is actually for our dinner tonight. We're having kind of an early light dinner, so this is a good option for that kind of thing. So because of that, I'm making a large one. But as I said, you could definitely make a smaller one. Just cut the ingredients that I'm giving you in half. So along with our eggs, we are going to add 1 cup of milk into the blender. Next, we are going to add 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I have a half cup here, so we'll measure this in twice. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar right into our blender. And just a little dash of cinnamon. I'm not going to measure, just going to plop a little bit in there and see what comes out. That looks good. Cinnamon's optional, so if you want to just keep it really simple, you don't have to use that. Also optional, but highly recommended, is vanilla extract. So I'm going to be adding some of that. I'm not really measuring it. Just going to, probably about a teaspoon or so. Maybe we'll add a little splash more. So probably added about 2 teaspoons of vanilla in there. All right, now we're just going to pop the lid on our blender and we're just going to get this all blended up. You can also whisk this by hand if that's easier. I just like doing it in the blender because it makes it nice and quick. If you see any little bits of flour that are kind of stuck on the side of your blender, just go ahead and scrape them down and then just blend it again for a couple more seconds. Now our oven is all preheated and our pan is hot. Before we add our batter, we're just going to add about half a stick of butter in this pan. We're going to let that melt and start to brown. So we just want to leave that in there to melt and start to brown just a little bit before we add our pancake batter to it. So I'm going to check on it pretty frequently to make sure that it doesn't burn. So take a look at this butter here. You can see it's all melted. It's just barely starting to brown, but it's not dark at all yet. That's what we want. So now we're going to take our pancake batter and pour this into the pan. All right, so you can see that nice generous pool of butter is just going to make this rich and delicious. We want to make sure that we don't miss any of this batter. So I'm just going to go ahead and scrape this out with a wooden spoon. So we're going to go ahead and pop this back in the oven. It's going to cook right in this skillet. It's going to bake for 20 minutes at the 425 degrees. Once that timer goes off, I am going to lower the oven temperature to 300 degrees and bake it for another 5 minutes. I'm going to bring you back here to see this when it's done. It's really cool and really dramatic. It makes a pretty impressive presentation. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you see it. All right, so our Dutch baby pancake is done. I'm going to show it to you, and you need to see it right when it first comes out of the oven because that's when it looks the most dramatic. So let's take a look. So look at that. How is that for a dramatic presentation? Now these always look so impressive when they first come out of the oven. Unfortunately, they do deflate pretty quickly. I can actually see it deflating before my eyes. So it's not going to look as impressive as it does when it first comes out, but it's still going to taste delicious, hopefully. And I guess that's the point of this video, is testing this out and seeing how fresh our water glass eggs taste. All right, so we are going to slice up this Dutch baby and we are going to try it. Remember, this is from our water glass eggs. So your opinion is very important here. Now, one thing that's very important to remember, when you take this pan out of the oven, it is hot. I have definitely grabbed a handle from a pan like this more than once. Not recommended. Oh, I forgot to get your fork, didn't I?
Yes.
Let us all know how it is. And then we'll watch him for a day or so and see how he does.
24-hour surveillance.
Yeah. Is it like blazing hot? I saw the steam coming off it.
No.
So if I didn't tell you, would you know this was water glass eggs, or would you think it was the fresh ones?
I'm not sure I could tell the difference.
Okay.
Just good.
Well, that's a good endorsement. So whether you have water glass eggs or not, even if you just have fresh eggs, go ahead and make this Dutch baby pancake. It's a great treat. Makes a great brunch, a great breakfast. So it's definitely delicious. And apparently it works well with water glass eggs too. So I guess our eggs are a success then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's give this a little bit of a taste. Tastes like a Dutch baby. I'm not sure if I could tell the difference. Even knowing that it's water glass eggs, I think it tastes pretty much the same as it always does. So I would say this recipe is a success, and the water glass eggs are a success. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that you enjoyed seeing an update on our 6-month-old water glass eggs. If you have ever water glass eggs before, leave a comment and let me know how yours did. Was it successful, or was it something you don't think you'd really do again? I hope you also enjoyed making this Dutch baby pancake with me. This is a really great, easy go-to when you kind of want a brunch, a simple lunch, or in the case of today, we just want a really light, simple dinner tonight. So it's a really easy go-to for that. So if you haven't made one of these before, I highly recommend it. Now you can top it lots of different ways. A lot of times in the summer, we'll top it with fresh berries. It's really delicious that way. Sometimes I'll kind of cook up some frozen berries and make a little bit of a sauce with it. It's great just topped simply with maple syrup. It's great with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar. There's just so many delicious ways to eat it. Now I did just make, I'm sure you saw it on my counter before, I made a fresh batch of homemade raspberry jam yesterday. So I think some of that might be really good on it tonight. Maybe I'll defrost some frozen raspberries to throw in with it too. We'll see. So either way, I know it's going to be delicious. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye guys. I'll see you next time.